Hi everyone, I'm Chris Liebing, a DJ and producer living in Frankfurt, Germany. Well, I think first of all, electronic music is kind of not born in any certain region of the world. It's kind of I always said electronic music is the first kind of global music we're having. It doesn't have really roots in one certain country or anything, and it kind of is a very simplistic thing in a way, because we all agree on 4/4 beats. We can all dance to it since thousands of years, and I think that is the power that unites so many people on a dance floor, no matter what ethnicity they are, no matter where they come from, if they're rich or poor. It kind of unites everyone on this basic level, and I believe very strongly that this is the very first global music, and that is a great thing. It transcends all the nationalities and everything else. Yeah, it's above that. What? You could argue if one really needs to know the history of a music in order to enjoy it. Obviously, I think if you know more about the history, where the music comes from, you probably have you value it in a different way, because automatically you know more about it, and you probably discover more music because of it too. So it has a lot of beneficial effects to it. But I don't really think that necessarily everybody who's listened to electronic music needs to know the whole history behind it. I do think with things like ADE, for example, or IMS, and loads of these panel talks that we have, there is a lot of communication going on behind the scenes. And it is up to us, basically, with our social media work as well, to always kind of like point out certain things, especially now when it comes to Black Lives Matter movement, that to point out that a lot of the roots of our music is based in the Black music culture, and I think this is good to use moments like these to bring more knowledge to the people who might not normally would be interested where something comes from. Around the fake ones, the ones that say they know. When we started this whole thing, it wasn't actually about that we would think about talking about important subjects. Hence the title DJs and Beers. We're just we happened to randomly, in that moment, that was beginning of the lockdown and beginning of March, middle of March, we happened to talk to each other, and the idea came about like, why don't we do a regular talk with each other? Also, maybe even as a therapy session for us, to talk with each other. And we kind of started that not with a thinking that this is a long-term project. We just did it for one Thursday night. We just basically said like, hey, you guys all go online, we'll stream it in the internet, and we'll see if people who are also sitting at home are enjoying watching us talking about maybe total stupid stuff, like not really important stuff, just basically giving a little bit of a light time during all these heavy times that we were experiencing, especially when the virus came in the beginning. And then it just developed into something more in a way. We started to invite guests, and we, even if we wanted to avoid, let's say, important subjects, we couldn't anymore, because things were happening, and we had the choice. We either don't continue with our show, or we address also controversial matters. And we decided to stick to it. And we're 5 guys from different places on the planet. We basically have one Iranian, we have one Mexican, we have one half Mexican, half Egyptian. I'm a German, we have an English bloke. So we have different points of view in various things. We have quite some discussions and debates going on amongst us too. Where to take the show, how to approach it, and so far we've been successful in continuing doing the show, and we don't know where it's going to lead to, But so far, I think we do not really, I don't think we really want to achieve something with it. We want to bring about discussions about topics. Then I have to go back to why we actually started it, just to have a time off somehow and drink some beers and basically just invite people to sit with us on the table as if nobody was watching us in a way. And this is how we still try to treat it. We talk to each other, we talk to our guests as if we were actually, it wouldn't be any different if we were sitting all together on a table. But obviously we're broadcasting it, and obviously we are watched and commented on what we're doing. So that's a constant process of learning more how to deal with all that. It's an interesting process too. You know, we're not trying to convince anyone of our individual opinions, you know. We're just listening to each other, and we're trying to learn of each other, especially during those times, you know. We're all DJs, we're all out of a job, we're just talking to each other. But if people kind of like want us or expect us to basically solve the Middle East crisis or something like that, and it's obviously the wrong address, and then people should like really remember what the title of the show is. And that is sometimes a thing that we have to deal with, obviously, because people expect us to really tackle and have solutions for a lot of problems, which we don't. And we're basically pretty open about that too. Probably my ego. That's if I look back in hindsight and always think about questions like this, what would you recommend a young artist for today? And especially in this world today, I would recommend not to compare yourself to anyone else out there, which is easily done in the internet, because you're going to be frustrated. Not only because everything you see online is mostly set up and not really all that great as it looks, and if you compare yourself to this and you look at your own life, you always fail, and you start to become miserable. And when I started, obviously the internet wasn't such a big factor back then in the middle of the 90s yet, but you had to struggle, and it was the same struggles as you still have today, and I'm still dealing with my ego. It's like, where are you placed on the lineup? When is your playtime? Why does the other DJ has more exposure than you have? Because I make more music. Why is this happening? This is all your ego basically talking to you, and to not take that too serious is I think the best advice you can give a young artist. Not to only listen to what your ego tells you what's wrong and that you deserve more. That is one of the biggest obstacles I think in any artist's career, because it takes away from the energy, it takes away from actually being creative, and that is something that I still struggle with, and it's the biggest thing to overcome in my career. I believe still, yeah. I would say the biggest change has to do with the level of production, and I mean that in any way possible. When I look back let's say I started playing techno. I DJ'd before already, but I started to play solely techno in '93. And when I remember what kind of mixing desks we had available, what kind of sound systems we were playing on, it was not laid out for electronic music. It was sometimes I wish I could travel back in time to just experience how the sound quality was in those places where we were actually playing. So I would say this and the level of professionalism when it comes to productions of events and clubs. What has changed over the past 25 years is immense. It's insane, and I also would say the level of sound quality of actual productions of music. You know, nothing against old classics, but if you really look at some of them, they really sound pretty terrible, because they were produced, and that was a little bit the problem with electronic music, that it started during a time where the whole world started to switch from analog to digital. And analog was great. If you listen to old Beatles albums that were produced in the 60s at Abbey Road Studios, they sound insanely good. Yeah, but at some point the early digital technology appeared, and the quality wasn't that great, and that's why I think digital also still has a sort of a negative ring to it. But it caught up pretty massively especially over the last 10 years, and we're now at a sound quality where digital can easily keep up with great analog gear as well. And I think this, because it's technology, that's where techno, and I believe I play techno, comes from. I think that was definitely, or is still, the biggest change that this music is going through. I actually have a couple of those, but I think the very strangest one, which I gladly admit to, I already posted multiple times about it, happened to me last year at May 1st, when I played a May Day in Germany, which is this big rave, and I played it in the morning. I had the last set from 6 to 8, and then I played a little open air in Hanover for like 1,000 people on the next day in the afternoon. And I couldn't have breakfast. I had a quick sleep, 5-6 hours, no time for breakfast, jumped in a train, was really hungry, and I found a chocolate bar in my backpack. And I remember that I got this chocolate bar at a party in Miami 3 months earlier. And what I didn't know was this chocolate bar was 2 portions of mushrooms. And I have never taken mushrooms in my life. Neither have I consumed LSD. So I was completely unaware of what was happening with me. I ate the whole bar of chocolate, which was meant for 2 people, on a basically empty stomach. And the trip that I went onto was first time in my life that I ever experienced. I luckily had a tour manager with me who was experienced in things like this, who could help me a little bit on my weird trip that I experienced. And I got to Hanover already completely out of my head. I remember I was lying actually on the side of the tracks when I got out of the train, and the promoter who came to pick me up was just looking at me like, "What did you do?" And I accidentally ate some mushroom chocolate. I actually managed to play that gig. And that was definitely the weirdest thing that ever happened to me at a gig, but also one of the best things in a way, or most amazing things in a way, that I actually managed to pull this through with so much discipline that I had in me and so much routine that I had in me, that even when I looked at my mixing desk, and it literally looked like made out of Lego, and it was tiny, it was like this big. It was a Model 1 mixer, and I actually had to turn around to my tour manager saying like, "Is this the mixer I'm always playing with?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, okay, I'm ready for this challenge. And it was a weird kind of thing because I've never had this experience before. You somehow knew what you were doing, but you couldn't really control what you were doing. And my biggest fear was that I'm just going to fall over at some point because I didn't know when it's going to end. You know, the intensity got higher and higher, and I didn't know how much I actually ate, and how am I going to get to a point where I'm going to fall over and I don't see anything anymore, and all these 1,000 people are solely here for me. I was the only act in a way. And it put a lot of pressure on me under these circumstances, but I'm super proud that I actually managed to do it. You can actually find that set online. I released it as one of my AM/FM podcasts. I contacted that person a day later, and I asked like, "Dude, that chocolate bar, I remember you gave that to me in Miami 3 months ago. I put it in my bag. I forgot about it I knew I had it in there. I was hungry. I ate the whole thing. How much was that?" And he was basically confirming to me, it was meant for 2 people. You ate the whole thing? And I was like, yes. And you still could stand and do stuff? And I was like, I even played a 2.5-hour gig with it.
What a story.
So kids, be careful what you're eating out there. I think that the first person comes to mind is Martin L. Gore from Depeche Mode, because I do believe, honestly, he is not only one of the greatest, maybe the greatest songwriter we have in our generation. The singer-songwriter duo Dave Gahan and Martin Gore, you can compare to Simon and Garfunkel and other amazing duos. And I think if I could spend a day with him in the studio, I would probably learn so much of this person, the way he works, the way he gets his inspiration. I think he's such a genius. It would be my wildest dream probably to share a studio day with him. During the lockdown, I did a lot of remixing, also of my own tracks. But one remix I want to point out, which is released already on Beatport, I believe, is a super old classic from Roland Clarke called "What the Strut." It is released on Afro Acid, which is DJ Pierre's label, in combination with Get Physical. And Roland Leesker is a co-author of that release. And I was asked, and I was super honored to be asked to do a remix for this one. And since you see it actually next to me, since I had I didn't have a studio when the lockdown started. I moved out of my studio 2 years ago, and I was in the process of building a new one. I'm actually still in the process. So all I had with me was kind of limited equipment, 909, 303, 808, some stuff. And so I felt like, how about I remix this classic only using the original samples and a 909 and a 303. And limitation is sometimes the key, and it's a great thing to be more creative. You just limit yourself on machines that you basically know since 25, 30 years, but you really dive deep into. And I have to tell you, actually during that lockdown, and I only have these nice little machines here with me, I dove so deep into them that I learned more about the machines during this lockdown than I probably knew about them in the past 20 years, which is an amazing thing in itself. So I'm really proud of that remix that is out, that you should look for. Some other thing that I did is I remixed all my Burn Slow. Burn Slow was my album that I released on Mute for 2 years ago, which is more like a listening album. But I decided to remix all those tracks into club mixes. So they're probably going to come out at some point. And I'm at this moment finalizing my second album from Mute, which has no name yet. But I'm really happy with it. And it's going to be, I think, a really nice follow-up. For those who enjoyed Burn Slow, probably will enjoy that one too. Thank you so much for tuning into RRP TV, and stay safe out there.